Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who did not set up a thing for this video, so I'll just roll right into it. Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. I know some of you are thinking this fight might suck. I think you're harping on the Derek Lewis fight. I think this fight is going to be awesome, regardless of what happens. I think it's like an exciting heavyweight version of Grant Dawson versus Joe Selecki. And I do expect a finish in this fight. My official prediction is Jailton Almeida wins by TKO on the ground, late in round one, early in round two, I guess. But the bets are going every which way. I've played Romanov by TKO, especially because I can. I think his primary path to victory is a TKO in this fight. And my biggest bet is under 2.5 rounds at minus 190. You could also play under 1.5 rounds at plus 100, but I feel more confident with under 2.5 rounds. I would be very surprised if this one went the distance. Both guys are really potent finishers, and they get it done with TKOs or submissions, but pretty much all their finishes are on the ground, or most of them. And these guys are both fighters that have been finished as well. Jailton Almeida's been knocked out twice in his three losses. Once to Curtis Blades in his last fight, where he was just hammer fisted against the cage when he shot him for a takedown and maybe got a little lazy, according to him. And that was after dominating Curtis Blades. Well, maybe not dominating him, but totally controlling him in round one. And he lost by knockout as well to this guy, Thiago Maheda, who knocked him out with a right hand in the center of the mat a couple of years back, sometime back. And also, he's got a decision loss to this guy, Bruno Assis. I haven't seen the fight, even though I've tried to very hard. But the guy Bruno's a good grappler, so I'm thinking that's how he lost the fight. Having said that, I've seen one small little sliver of the fight, and it was Jailton Almeida actually rocking Bruno in round three. So I don't know exactly how that fight went down, but he lost the decision. Still, though, two TKO and knockout losses really in your three losses. It doesn't speak to a weak chin, but on paper, it's got to be considered your primary weakness. Alexander Romanov isn't Mr. Knockout. Almost all of his TKO wins come on the ground. I think maybe I saw one that took place on the feet, but I could even be wrong about that. They could all take place on the ground. That's certainly where most of them take place. And as is the case, we've seen it in the UFC, where that's where he gets things done, even if it's a TKO. But I think despite not having maybe concussive power, he's got distinct physicality over Jailton Almeida. Jailton's a big, strong guy, and I do think he could get the better of Romanov early with his athletic takedowns. But Romanov is a fucking grizzly bear. So Romanov is going to be much more difficult to manhandle. Maybe he can manhandle him once early, but I don't think he can consistently manhandle Alexander Romanov like he has other fighters. Even Derek Lewis, who's a big, gigantic heavyweight, but certainly the guys he beat on his way up to Derek Lewis. Jared Vandera and Chase Sherman and whoever the fuck else, Parker Porter and Anton Turkali. You know, Alexander Romanov is twice the beast that those guys are. So I think this one is destined to end on the ground. I think either guy, if he's able to get his opponent even slightly tired or discouraged and is able to get on top of him, he could put him away. I should talk about Romanov's losses quickly. He's got two of them. One to Marcin Tabora, who beat him by majority decision. That was a loss due to cardio. Romanov was dominating him early on, and then in rounds 2 and 3, he wasn't able to wrangle Tabora, and Tabora was able to outstrike him and outwork him. Romanov looked tough in defeat, but it wasn't enough, and his cardio was the main takeaway, the failure of his cardio. His other loss was to Alexander Volkov, and this was a TKO in round one on the ground. Volkov got him out of there on the ground, but I still don't know how much he was hurt on the feet. He was getting touched up on the feet in the short time that they were on the feet. And I think a body shot might have really hurt him right before they hit the ground. But either way, once on the ground, I'm hoping a body shot hurt him because Romanov looked like he was just done. He looked like he was checked out, and Volkov pounded on him for a minute and ended up getting him out of there. Threw in some hooks and whatever. I don't want to make it like he just turtled up like Grant Dawson when he got hurt by Bobby Green. But it was a slow death, I guess, even though it still took only a minute. But he didn't make anything happen on the ground. So that's something I have to keep in mind with Jailton Almeida, and I guess that is my basis for picking Jailton. I think Jailton has that athleticism and grappling prowess to get even the strongest heavyweights controlled in round one. He wasn't able to wrangle Curtis Blades to the mat and throw in his hooks and do his usual thing, but he still controlled him pretty clearly and it looked pretty easy too. So Jailton winning in rounds one and a half, the first 1.5 rounds is my pick, and I think a TKO would be more likely for Jailton, but a submission is certainly on the table. Having said that, for Romanov, if he was to win, I would be very surprised if he won by submission, unless it's a fucking forearm choke like he did to Marcos Rogerio de Lima. But without any of that Tom Erickson shit, I don't think he's going to submit Jailton Almeida. I think the path to victory for him is a TKO, whether it's pure physicality and knocking him for, unconscious, or it's turning the fight around and weighing on him and getting on top of him. I think in that spot, a TKO is still way more likely than a submission, even though both guys have more submissions than TKOs. And if this goes to a decision, I'd be very surprised, and I will lose money on this fight. But I wouldn't even mind seeing it. It would just be fucking interesting at this point. So I hope it's a good battle. I slightly favor Almeida early, just if he's able to put Romanov in his worst spot and overwhelm him and maybe discourage him like Volkov did. And by the way, I don't know what Romanov we're going to see. He might be 210 pounds and chiseled, or he might be 340 pounds and get cut from the UFC because he can't make the heavyweight limit. So it's one or the other, but either way, no matter what he weighs in at, he's a solid physical heavyweight fighter, and this is a much different matchup than anything Jailton Almeida has faced. I mean, Curtis Blades he faced, and Curtis is a difficult guy to wrangle. Curtis ended up knocking him out. I can't say that is my pick, but it's certainly one of my bets. Hope it's a good fight. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.